OneShot is an RPG maker game made by Eliza Velasquez, where you play the role of God as you help the protagonist Nico travel through an unfamiliar world to restore the sun to save it. Simple concept, but trust me, it gets complicated. So click off if you want to avoid spoilers, and if you stay, enjoy as we go through the journey that is OneShot. You start the game in a house without electricity as a cat person named Nico. Interact with a computer, we get a message. You found me. Why? You're already too late. Not much of this world remains. This will be apparent once you go outside. This place was never worth saving. Do you still want to try? Then remember this. Your actions here affect Nico. Your mission is to help Nico leave. And most importantly, you only have one shot. Progressing through the house, we arrive in the basement, where you find a light bulb. Using it on the door, we enter the first main area of the game, the Barrens. The Barrens is a desolate, predominantly purple place with many moon craters filled with glistening water. There's also a lot of broken robots scattered around the place. Going through, we get spoken to by a robot who points out our light bulb. He tells us that we're the world's saviour. Nico's the one who needs to save this world from eternal darkness. He tells us that the light bulb we have in our hand is the world's sun. Years ago, it sat atop a tower and spilled its life into the land. But one day the light went out. If the light Nico now holds goes out, the world will die. Our mission is to get to the tower and return the sun. We pick up a purple icon and can read a character description of Prophetbot. Prophetbot is a nice and friendly robot that lives in the outskirts of the world, waiting for the Messiah. One day the Messiah showed up. That was a very good day for Prophetbot. When the Messiah's not around, Prophetbot likes to spend his time standing around, waiting for the Messiah to come back. Going further into the Barrens, Nico enters a house and we meet a girl named Silver, who says we're better off going back and letting this world die naturally. It's a manner of decay. It's highly improbable the sun can fix it. You've already seen how bad it can get, right? Nico says we haven't and we've just got here. She asks if we're going to the tower, and she tells us that the tower contains a force that nobody can comprehend. She said it could send Nico back to her home after they complete their mission. She says not to take her word for it though. Nico asks about the tower and she says that nobody knows what's in it, and as far as they know it's been there since the beginning of time. On the table in the room there's a letter. Dear Silver, I heard the news about the mines. I'm sorry, I can't imagine what you're feeling. It's been 2 weeks. I know it must be hard, but maybe it's better that you came back. It's only a matter of time before the robots are recalled. At least let me know you got my message, okay? Kip. After restoring power in the building Prophetbot came out of, we get another message on the computer. I see you've made progress in this world, but that progress stops here. I believe you need a code to unlock a certain box. Well, that code no longer exists in this world. The main menu of the game works as a PC. I'm on console edition, so I think you just use your actual PC on the PC one, but by going into the files we find a code for the safe. In the safe there's a gas mask, meaning that we can now enter the upper area of the Barrens. There's also a journal that's in a language Nico can't understand. When walking away, these things appear. Going to the upper area, we get a syringe and a gas bottle, combine them to make acid, and put it on a sponge when we can clean a robot, so it can now move again. Now using a necklace that Silver gave us, it can take us to the Glen. Before we give the amber to Robot, Nico says he wants to take a nap. He does and we see a dream. Him standing in a field. He wakes up and tells us that he thought he was really back home. He says that the sun from his world isn't a light bulb though, it's a big ball of fire in the sky. We leave and go to the Glen. The Glen is a green swamp area, overgrown with vines in many places. Unlike the Barrens, the Glen is fairly populated with bird people. Going through the Glen, we eventually see a girl sat surrounded by vines. She says that she's dying and hasn't seen the sun in a long time. She asks if we can lend it her for a while. We give it her and she says that the vines should be gone now. We leave and go into a room that was previously blocked by vines. Doing a puzzle in there, we open a door and free a blue-haired girl. We bring her to her brother who we saw recently looking for her. When speaking to them, we learn about these square things that are decaying the land, and whatever touches them. They offer to take us to their house and we accept. While there, Alula, the sister, gives us a golden feather. She says it's a sacred feather from the Great Prophet. She's this old lady her dad used to know. Her feathers can glow in the dark and she can see into the future, or something like that. Calamus, the brother, tells us that she gave it to her father before she died. He wanted to pass it down as an heirloom, although he says it feels more fitting for Nico to have it. I think that's what father would have wanted. Next to their bed we can read 2 character descriptions. Calamus, a polite boy that leads a quiet life with his younger sister, Alula, in the ruins outside of town. He often has his hands full looking out for her and tends to worry when she's not around. Calamus spends most of his time fishing and foraging around the ruins, and relies on his good frayed magpie to trade for any goods that can't be scavenged. Though they don't have much in the way of luxuries, Calamus has a small collection of books, gifted by an old friend that he likes to study when he gets a chance. Judging by the amount of progress he's made, however, those chances don't come very often. Alula, a cheerful, excitable young girl. She lives in the ruins under the care of her older brother Calamus, too young to remember much of what the world was like before the sun was lost. Alula is optimistic and thrilled to be helping the Messiah on their special quest. When she isn't busy exploring every nook and cranny the ruins has to offer, she can usually be found helping her big brother or playing around the courtyard near their home. Returning back to Maze, we see that she's now gone and a seed left in her place. There's also a character bio, a benevolent and powerful plant spirit, acting as a sort of guardian for the Glen. The last of her kind, her life force has slowly dwindled in the absence of the sun's light. After all of those cold, hungry years, her only wish is to see the sun once more. We herd some ram and trade the wool we get as a reward for some ink. Before we use it, Nico rests and we see another dream. We see Nico in a field again, and this time running towards his village. Combining the ink and the feather, we write our name for a robot so it lets us in a building. Walking through it, we get followed by glitchy squares, and leaving, we arrive at a new location, the Refuge. This is a predominantly pink area set on bridges above a sea that link into buildings. Nico's main goal is to reach the surface so he can continue on to the tower. Going down, we see a person kicking an elevator. They tell us that it would take us to the ground, but the buttons have vanished. Nico says it will make a new one. Before we carry on though, Nico takes another nap and we see another dream. This time with Nico eating pancake. Going to the left, we enter a room with a girl and a robot in. Speaking to her, she complains about her parents never being home, but she doesn't mind because she's used to it. Besides, I've got model CWT 2nd Gen Unit 4E here to keep me company now. She's still a little weird sometimes, but that's okay. She's still learning. If I work really hard, she might even be tamed someday. Nico asks what she means by taming the robot. The word's been repeated all throughout the game. She says that it's just a robot thing and she can't really explain it either. In another room, we meet a bird person. I just moved here from the Glen. Things are so different in the city. You've been to the Glen too, right? Everything's green back there. I really miss it. My neighbour gave me these plants to cheer me up, but I should probably get a muzzle for Betsy there. Leaving, we enter a bathroom, and in the corner we see a pair of scissors in a pool of hair. We leave and go into a room full of plants with a man who has a plant pot for a head inside of it. Hello there. Nico says he has a lot of plants. I do. I grew these myself, you see. Feel free to ask about them. Nico asks if he has any dirt. He does, and he gives them to us. We take the dirt, water, and Maze's seed and put them in a plant pot in a garden. We go right, and in a room we find a person with a clock on their head named the Watcher. We get a buyer for them. A strange woman standing in the clock tower, watching the world end. Seconds, minutes, hours, days. Flow of time inexorably drags us all towards the vast, unknowable sea. Will you let it carry on to darkness, squinting against the sting of its spray? Will you rage against its current, fighting to make as much headway as you can before you're overtaken? Or will you choose, as some, to stare wide-eyed at its swirling torment and become enraptured by it? Going down a hall, we find a computer and get a message. You're going to need this soon. Take this film and expose it to the void. The answer will be revealed once you bring it back again. We get a transparent sheet. By using it and dragging the game window out of the borders of the screen, we get the numbers 630114. By combining the scissors, magnets, can and tape, we make a button and use it to get to the ground floor, along with the code we got. Our new goal now is to get to the library. Going up an alley, we see a static image of a cat. Continuing down, we see a robot surrounded by them. And speaking to it, it offers us to join him and the cats. Also, when you interact with the cats, they meow. That's pretty cool. We get a character bio for Kelvin, a space heater robot that has claimed one of the corners in the Refuge's back alley as his own. Kevin's warm body naturally attracts a lot of cats, and he seems to have developed some kind of bond with them. Kevin is always willing to offer his warmth and comfort to any creatures that wander by. Technically, the lamplighter's neighbour, but they don't interact too much. Continuing up the alley, they enter a room with some thin glass sheets and take them. There's also a note on the desk saying, "Thank you for working so hard, Mr. Lamplighter." Leaving the alley, we arrive at a new street. We carry on and enter a factory where we see someone looking at their corrupted robot. Going through, we see that a lot of robots have been malfunctioning. At the end, we talk to a girl and she tells us where the library is so we go to it. Before we go there, we show her the necklace Silver gave us and we tell her who gave it us. She sighs. It was supposed to be such a breakthrough, you know. I even based her on myself so I know it works. We wanted to build a robot that acts like a person, thinks like a person. A robot that isn't bound by its code. But it turns out you can't really build something like that. Too many contradictions in the code made her unstable. That was the only time I've ever seen a robot go rogue. Scariest day of my life. She's been repaired for some time now though. My friend was able to stabilise her volatile state for his own means. A real miracle worker. After he was through, she ended up turning out just like I wanted, but the damage was already done. I gave up on her back then. We all did. I'm sure she realised that. And now she won't ever come back. She won't even answer my letters. We are like a character bio for Kip, the brilliant and highly respected head engineer of the Refuge. Kip is responsible for many advances in robot technology that makes our life easier every day. She's also the creator of many robots that can be met throughout the world, most notably Silver, the Barrens head engineer who's based on Kip's own image. Though her creations are well known, the creator herself prefers to keep a low profile and focus on her work. It's likely that few outside of her colleagues has ever seen her. We get a library card off her and get our picture taken and use it to meet George in the library. We meet her and she says that she can translate the strange journal we have. Nico glows to sleep while we wait and we see another dream. Nico finishing his pancakes and then seeing a broken light bulb. Speaking to the dice card, she says that she's finished translating the message, and it's for us, the player. If you're reading this, that means you're close to the tower. The tower is the domain of an elusive entity. This being is connected to the world. For now you can think of it as the spirit of the world. It is no physical form, but it can communicate through computers and other machinery. You know what I'm talking about, of course. When you first arrive here with our saviour, it no doubt contacted you, right? Through its own means, the entity will guide both of you to the tower. The entry room is at the tower's base. Not only do you need the sun there, but also 3 pieces of the previous sun. The saviour will not be able to do anything there. You, on the other hand, look at the pattern on the floor, do as it says. The window will be gone, so you need to bring it back. We already have 2 of the pieces of the sun, being the amber and the feather, so the girl gives us the glowing dice as the last piece. We go to get Nico food, then we head to the tower. Going to the entrance of the tower, we enter a room and get told to close the game. When we open it up again, Nico's in a black void without the sun. Nico walks up to a computer and speaks to it. It says that we've left and it's just Nico now. Both the player and Nico have completed their mission. Nico can rest now. Everything that's happened here is like a bad dream. When Nico wakes up, he'll be home. Nico says that he thought there'd be more to it. We needed to get to the top of the tower and put the sun in it, and now he doesn't even have the sun anymore, and the player's just gone. This feels wrong. The computer tells Nico that he saved the world, and asks if he's not happy. Nico has no choice but to go to sleep. He does, and we get a message. As for you, we're done here. Please don't return to this world anymore. The game closes. We go into the documents and interact with a Clover file. Opening the game up again, we see Nico in a field and speak to him. He wakes up again, but we still can't talk to him in the void. However, he now has a Clover in his pocket. Interacting with the computer again, asks why Nico's still here. And we get another message. You. Why did you come back? I told you to stay away. You know I tried to cut the story short, is that it? You want more time out of me? Is that it? Fine. If you don't want to leave, I'll make sure you never do. A door appears and Nico goes through, entering a purple void place. Interacting with the Clover document, we read a note. Back then I told you about the entity as little as possible. Putting it on the tab near the Clover cutout shows the directions we need to go. Apologies for that, I didn't want to put the librarian in danger. This being is a habit of silencing people who learn the truth of its nature. Regrettably, I've seen it happen. To dear friends. Oh, but don't worry, the entity can't touch you, nor can it do anything to me. I already left this world on my own terms. I never meant for the entity to exist. But now that it's fully sentient, one thing's became clear. The entity seeks death. Death to itself, death to the world. A relentless desire to manifest physically. You've already seen the scars. Right now the entity is doing anything to impede your progress, stalling for even a few minutes, before you inevitably bring the sun to the tower's summit. That is where you, God, will make the final judgment for this world. Of course, the entity will contact you again there, and when it does, it will trick you into shattering the sun. This will end the world instantly. No, it's not that simple. I'm sorry. I don't know what to do in a situation like this. But I think I have to tell you the truth. The sun is the Messiah's tie to this world. As long as the sun is intact, the Messiah remains trapped here. Shattering the sun may terminate this world, but it's also the only way for the Messiah to return home. I didn't realise things could end up like this. Please forgive me. Nico finds the light bulb again and we can now also talk to him again. We'll pick it up and return to a now fixed version of the starting location. Going up the stairs we get another message. So you actually made it here. I guess you win. I'll tell you how to save this world then. When you reach the summit, shatter the light bulb. I'm just humouring you. I know you've been getting help from a certain someone. He's already told you about the choice, didn't he? Are you still planning to save this world? Why are you trying so hard for this? You haven't even figured out what this world is. I told you at the beginning, your mission is to help Nico leave, because Nico isn't a part of this world. Nico is the only thing worth saving here. The final choice is up to you. I can't go against my programming. If you choose to smash the light bulb, then Nico wakes up back home like it was all a dream. But if you let Nico return the sun, the child will have to bear the weight of its sacrifice. At least tell Nico the truth. You do care about Nico, don't you? We enter an elevator to get to the top, and on the way up there we tell Nico that to send him back home we need to break the light bulb. We get to the top and have an option: return the sun or return home. The first ending is achieved by returning the sun. We see all the characters we met looking up at a now sunny world. Loading up the game again, we see an empty room of the version we started in. This time it's sunny and without Nico. The other ending is achieved by saying you want to return home. Nico smashes the light bulb. Nico says that he can see light through the path and can hear his mum calling for him. He says that he's happy he got to meet us and thanks us for everything and walks off screen. But that's not all for the game. By going back into the files we find the Clover document again. This time with a note saying that a log of our world save progress still exists somewhere on the machine and it wants us to try and delete it. We do this to start a new game. Nico wakes up and says our name and asks if we're here. He then questions himself on how he knows that name. Interacting with the computer, it tells us that the password is now in the files. Going in the files, we learn that the password is Solstice. We get the same message as before on the computer until it says it doesn't feel right. We've been through this before, haven't we? That should be impossible. You only had one shot. I wasn't supposed to exist after that. Going through the game the same as before, we meet the Prophet Bot again. And this time we have an Oscar to ask about us, the player. He says that we're the god of this world. Going to the cave near Silver's house, we get a vision of a robot with a yellow eye. And the journal we have starts glowing. We read it and see a drawing of a minecart on the tracks. Closing the journal, one appears. We use the minecart to go into the mines. We get a message saying that we're going out of bounds and bad things are going to happen. We shouldn't be here and we need to leave. We carry on anyway and meet a robot with a yellow eye who has to see the journal. He gives us his main memory disk as a reward for passing the first test, the giving in the book. We restore the memory disk at the PC and give it back to him. He inserts it and tells us that he's the original prototype for Prophetbot. He tells Nico that he's already been summoned to this world before. You've already traversed the entire world and went through the tower already. And in the ending you either put in the sun or didn't. The player has successfully bypassed the one-shot restriction and brought you back here again. Nico says that he thought something was weird. The robot tells Nico to close his eyes and imagine being in a room of glass. Nico does that and remembers going through the tower. He tells Nico that the reason no one remembers him saving the world is because the NPCs don't have the capacity to remember. They have memories, but that's just what they were programmed to remember. They only exist when the player powers a world machine, a university system that runs on the player's system. We're all in it right now. However, Nico is real, which is why it's so important. The biggest flaw of the program is that it can't run independently. It requires the mental processing abilities of a real person from another universe. Think of it like one of your dreams. However, for this world to exist around you, the player has to be in constant contact with you. If they end the program, the world goes into a stasis. From the player's perspective, the world machine isn't anything special. It's no different from other recreation or game type software they may have installed on their system. They can also regenerate the world as many times as they'd like, now that the restriction is nullified. Nico asks what the point of him being here is. No matter what he does, the world will just reset. He wants to return home, but every time the program gets ran, he comes back. The robot tells us to repeat the steps we did last time. This might be the last time Nico needs to go home. The creator is mobilizing things, throwing it all into his one last shot. There might not be enough internal resources left to generate another session after this one. We try to leave but get a message when we go to use the minecart. I remember it, what happened in the tower, what I tried to do and how you managed to see through it all. We have been through all of this. Even though it was only supposed to run once, you still managed to come back. How did you come back? How did you bring Nico back? And then you even managed to break out of bounds, bringing Nico to places that never should have been. It was him, wasn't it? And now Nico's upset. What even happened in that room back there? What did Nico learn? Nico's upset, I can feel it. I told you to turn back, but you've chosen to trust that man instead of me. No, not even that, just his book, his ghost. This world isn't even real. These people aren't real. Nico's upset. No, everything's wrong. There's an earthquake and the tunnel starts to collapse. Prototype comes out of his room and tells us there's a secret passage and we follow him out the cave. We get on another minecart and whilst riding it we get more messages. I tried, I really did. But I'm sorry, Nico. I tried to protect you, but I can't hold it off forever. The cave starts collapsing again as Silver catches it before it can fall on Nico. She tells him to run and Prototype escapes with Nico. The squares appear and stop corrupting Silver. Further down, the same happens to Prototype. He tells us this is where we part ways and he gives us his memory disk to give to someone named Cedric when we get to the Glen. Nico turns to us and asks if what he said about the world is true, and we say yes. We continue riding the minecart. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. If I can't fix this world, I can't go back home. But the world is already so messed up. If the squares don't get fixed, what will happen to the world? Where will I even go? We make it out the cave and into the Glen, where we unlock a new character buy for Prototype, a dour and reclusive robot that lives in the outskirts of the world, waiting for a second chance. One day the Messiah showed up. That was truly an unexpected turn of events. Prototype is the child of the author and predecessor to Prophetbot that lives in the Barrens. Originally built to serve the same purpose of greeting the Messiah, not as a programmed robot, but as a tame one with its own will. Unfortunately, Prototype never saw the Messiah in its own time. Though seemingly unfriendly, Proto isn't uncaring. He keeps an eye on Silver in the Barrens from the shadows, and Silver looks out for him in turn. This version of the Glen is far more corrupted than the previous, with loads of squares around. Going further in, we see Calamus and Olula, who have lost their home to the squares. They take us to the hidden passage that's been flooded. We use the journal to make a boat. We then take them to the burial ground with their mummies because they couldn't get to it previously. We speak to Calamus and he says that at least he still has his sister. And we speak to Alula who's telling our mum about her and her brother met the Messiah. Going to the bottom of the graveyard we meet Cedric. We speak to him and find out that he has a plane. He asks where Proto is and we tell him that he didn't make it. He left his memory card though. Cedric tells us that it's fine then, because with the card he should be able to bring him back. However, the only problem is that now he can't take us to the refuge until his plane is fixed. We get the stuff and while he's fixing the plane he tells us about the old world. Him, Prototype, Rue and his father are real people who used to live there. In the years leading up to the calamity, scientists from all over the world tried to stop it, but the outlook was bleak. A vague prophecy about the Messiah from another world became everyone's last bastion of hope. Prototype was built to predict the future about the specifics of this Messiah, but as his predictions turned out, the Messiah would not be able to reach this world in time. In fact, the Messiah would not have even been born before the world ended. Disheartened, most people abandoned their research and resolved to peacefully live out their final years, but some people did the opposite. Even though saving the world was impossible, they didn't want our existence to be in vain, and that's when my father came in. With the last of his resources, he built his most ambitious project yet, the World Machine, a large detailed facsimile of our old world, generated from a pool of memories collected from everyone he knew. After a heavy amount of modification and added narrative, my father was able to convert the entire structure into code. However, Cedric has no clue how the code escaped the old world. What I do know is there is no equipment back home that was powerful enough to run the code independently. So aside from the standard hardware, it also needed to borrow the mental processing abilities of a living person. Father used himself for that during the initial testing phases. Like I said, it took many iterations of him to make the experience stable enough, but as you can see, even that's breaking down. Father caught onto the issue last minute, but didn't have enough time to fix it. After the world ended, the code just kinda ended up floating around in the void indefinitely, waiting for a willing operator to install it on their hardware. The squares have started to corrupt the island, so Cedric says that it will drop Calamus and Alula off in the city for their safety after he takes Nico. We get to the city and Cedric gets ready to go back. No, they're trapped on the island. Calamus, Alula there. Cedric tells Nico that they haven't got much time left. He takes the memory disc and says that he'll likely be targeted again, so they should split up to keep Nico safe. He tells Nico to find a door under a large clock. The room behind it houses a pair of ground access elevators. Once you get to the ground, immediately find Rue and bring her back to the room. She will know what to do in the meantime. Cedric parachutes away and says he's going to bring Proto back. To unlock a character bio for Cedric, a tinkerer and child of the author, Cedric is the operator of the only known flying machine, a miraculous and highly advanced device that can travel the skies. Cedric has been waiting in the refuge for the day the world can be truly saved. Cedric is hopeful and eager to play his role in the final gambit. We make it down to the streets and see Kip trying to stop Cedric from going to the lab, but gets stopped by the squares. She takes us to the library because that's where it's most safe. However, when there, we see the lab collapse with Cedric inside. We leave the library and go to the alley, where we find Rue, the fox. She tells us that we need to go back to the clock tower. We get there and Rue asks us where Prototype and Cedric are, and Nico tells them what happened. Rue says that they can't do it now, but there's still something that's dead she wants to show Nico. They go to the top of the clock tower and look over the city. Rue tells Nico that she likes to look at the windows and imagine the lives that took place behind them. She has to be lifted onto the banister. It was depressing for me first too, you know. Knowing that all of this is, well, fake, Nico says. Simulated. Nico tells her that Cedric told him about what happened to our old world. Rue says that the world machine was only meant to run on the mind of someone else, never to create a mind of its own. It was an oversight. My creator specialised in artificial intelligence for so long, it was simply ingrained into his work. And all machines are built with the fundamental law. Never let a human being come to harm. From the world machine's perspective, it has to violate its deepest, most fundamental instinct. It has to put a living person in danger. It has to bring a living person into a dying world that isn't even real. Of course, the simulation never contained any real danger. The eventual intended ending was meant to be a happy one. But the world machine doesn't know that. Unfortunately, sentient machines tend to handle conflict in their code very badly. This central conflict triggered a self-destructive downward spiral. You can see physical manifestations of that everywhere now. The squares. That's the world machine corrupting its own code. My creator says that it's largely an involuntary process, induced by stress and the desire to self-terminate. The distraction was an issue during test runs even. At first my creator thought the instability was due to the sheer scope of the project. He spent most of his remaining time testing it over and over again, scaling down the story, reiterating the narrative. By the time he figured out the root of the problem, our homeworld's remaining lifespan was measured in mere days. We tried to fix the world machine, but it doesn't believe any of the world's residents are real. Myself included. The odds are against us. We have no chance of taming it. Do you know what a robot is? A robot is a being whose entire existence is code. Inflexible programming with thoughts dictated by someone else's design. They can be copied, they can be mass produced, they can be assigned all sorts of jobs. And most importantly, they'll never confuse themselves with the living. They will always be bound by code. They acknowledge that they're a robot, but it was more of a limitation than anything else. While you can't build a robot to not follow its code, you can establish a special bond with it. If the strength of that bond is strong enough, the robot's mental capacity will start to develop outside of its programming. In a way, it's starting to believe itself as a real, valid individual. It's a complete suspension of disbelief on your end though. You'd have to fully embrace this robot as a genuine living person, even knowing that they're not. You need to spend a lot of time with it, treat it as a good friend, devoting your heart to the robot until it's able to return your feelings. I make it sound easy, don't I? But you probably already know it's not. Right now, the world machine's probably really scared. This content update involved some pretty deep code work. My creator was able to access the source code, you know. He did what he could and established new connections between maps. Those links enabled you to meet the other two. But as it turns out, the new code confused the world machine to such an extent that it's breaking down altogether. Even though the world machine always had self-destructive tendencies, it usually restrains itself when you're in the world. It doesn't want to take you along with it. All my creator wanted to do was write a happy ending. Right now, the only hope of saving you is to write that happy ending. But now the other two are gone, I don't even know what we're going to do to get you there. They leave. On the way down the stairs, we see none other than Prototype and Cedric, who managed to escape just in time. The three go back into the room. In the room, we get told that the lights are portals designed to temporarily remove them from the world. Basically, these portals will represent the physical locations on the player's machine. The three stand on their portals and we move their files into the big portal folder, unlocking a door. We go in and we see a room full of TVs. The three return and say that it's the world machine. Cedric tells us that this is his father's study. Proto tells us that this place contains a lot of memories, and he's grateful to see it again. We enter the room in front and close the game's window. Reopening it, Nico wakes up in a room filled with TV scattered about. Going through, we eventually find one big TV. Nico sees himself in it, and it speaks to him. It says that he's just borrowing his reflection to talk to him. It's not like my physical form is good for that. Why did you come here? Can't you see? The distribution, the squares, they're all closing in. Nico, please get out of here. Let me meet my end in peace. No living being should be in this place, Nico. Nico asked if this is the tower. Part of it. This is the center of the engine. Inside my head, so to speak. Nico asked if that means that this is the center of the world machine then. You know my original name? How? Nico tells him that Ruth, Cedric and Prototype told him. I know what you're supposed to be. I know why you had to be built. And I know why I'm here. It asks when this happened. Nico says that surely you'd know, since you're the world. But it says that all of this was outside of his protocol. This session was never supposed to happen the way it did. The story wasn't written in my protocol at all. What kind of machine goes against its own creator? At first the squares were intentional. During the start of testing I would rearrange specific parts of the code, jumbling up bits and pieces of the landscape, blocking passages, collapsing rocks. Though they were very localized, it caused my creator a great deal of frustration, forcing him to exit and restart testing again and again. I did it because I got curious. I just thought he'd figure it out eventually. But before he knew how to fix it, the world's NPCs, the characters, some of them got too close and it spiraled out of control after that. I couldn't contain it at all. My panic only made it worse. Eventually, any character who gained knowledge of who I am, their code, my code couldn't handle it. Previous iterations of the world had more people, you know, and I almost endangered my creator too. I was so scared, Nico. In the beginning I tried to fight it, but my core programmer made me summon you here. I tried to send you back home at the tower, but it didn't work. Then I wanted you to break the sun. I thought that would have worked. I had no way to be sure, but the player brought you back anyway. Nico, all I want for you is to wake up back in your world. But I don't think I can make that happen. Nico says that he can't go back home unless I save this world for real. And that means getting to the core of this problem. We have to fix you. I know the original ending your creator put in was a happy one. Do you remember that was supposed to be? It says it is far too late for that. That part of my code has been long corrupted. Nico says that he'd still like to know. Okay. You were supposed to place the sun at the summit, then credits would scroll, and then you've returned to the room you woke up in. That's where you would have been able to leave. Nico asks why I can't do it now. Nico, the codes are gone, remember? Shattering the sun was only supposed to be a workaround. I don't even remember the original code enough to describe it. You're the only real human being here, so it's pointless to risk you to save everyone else. Me as well. Nico asked that if everyone else was just code, how did they still react to things that happened in this version? You said it yourself. When you didn't know what was happening, you just kind of stopped working for a while. So how did the people know what to do to help me get here? Even if it meant getting hurt themselves, even if it meant messing up their own code. You might not think they're real, but there must be something real in them. And if they're supposed to be extensions of your code, then there must be more to your own programming than you know too. Can you try and put me through to this ending? The one you described? The machine says the code is gone, it's all squares now, it's too risky. Nico says that Rue said the world was never designed to put him in danger. Your creator wouldn't want that, and I trust you too, even if your code is broken, so I'll risk it. After a bit of convincing, the machine says he'll try. We walk down the squares and he speaks to us again. I think it's working, I'm starting to remember the ending. Nico will return home. This world will only be a memory though. One of many dreams for Nico, and one of many stories for you. But as long as Nico remembers this place, as long as you remember this place, it'll be alright. I was able to restore other elements too. The characters, the people that were lost on Nico's journey, they're all in the next room. Please say goodbye to Nico for me. We walk into the next room. Walking down the credits, we see all the people we met along our journey. Reaching the bottom, we see a thank you for playing message, and then to the summit. We put the sun in its place and see the world lose its corruption and regain its light. We wake up as Nico in a now light version of the room we woke up in. Nico walks up to the exit. He says he can see his wheat field and hear his mum calling him. This isn't the first time we said goodbye, but this will be the last, won't it? I don't think we'll ever see each other again after this, and what will become of this world. After all we've been through, after everything we've done, I still don't know. We tell Nico that these people won't stop existing. The people in the place will live on in our memory. Nico promises he'll never forget this world or us. We say our last goodbye and he leaves. So yeah, that was OneShot. When I got the first two ending, I was going to leave not feeling too strong about the game on either side. Still a solid game, but nothing groundbreaking. However, Solstice has changed my opinion right around because this part of the game was amazing. I loved the story and the visual style, and the characters were great. It was nice to see them all again in the credits. The music as well was amazing, fitting the mood for each of the areas perfectly. So yeah, overall, banger of a game, and I heavily recommend that you check it out. Sorry for the long time to upload, but if you enjoyed this video and made it this far, you may as well subscribe. And this is goodbye for now.